space. Greetings to Facebook and all those who have viewed this interview. My name is Nicholas Patterson, and I am a brother of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated with Omicron Sigma Lambda chapter in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I have the esteemed privilege and pleasure of interviewing Ms. Major as she is going to inform us on our program as we partner with March of Dime. Ms. Major, we thank you so much for interviewing with us and giving us your time so that we can give the people enlightenment of what March of Dime is doing and has done for families across the world. If you don't mind, introduce yourself to the people so that they know who you are.
Okay. Well, good evening. Thank you so much for the invitation. I look forward to sharing my experiences and hopefully getting you excited about the things we're doing with the March of Dimes. My name is Cheryl Major. I am a registered nurse, and up until 2016, I was a nurse at the Children's Hospital here in Nashville in the neonatal intensive care unit program. Um, I started working there in 1968, fresh from Pennsylvania, coming to Nashville to work in the newborn nursery. And little did I know that that would introduce me to the March of Dimes and all the things they're doing to try to improve the outcome of pregnancy so that our babies are healthy and our mothers are healthy as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so with this, as I've been a part of this great fraternity and seeing all the great things that this fraternity has done for the community, one of which even last year was our desire to raise enough funds to send to March Down. So can you tell us what's been your experience with volunteering with March of Dimes and how it's blessed you to see some of the highs and lows and things like that? Let us know how that was.
Okay. So, as I mentioned, I am a nurse, and I was working in the nursery at Vanderbilt Children's in 1968, and I became aware of the high number of babies that were born small. Low birth weight is the term that's used, born premature, early, before 40 weeks gestation, and also a lot of babies were born with birth defects. And in the process of working with the parents and with the babies, March of Dimes was an organization that quickly came into the picture as far as offering solutions and support for these initiatives. So what happens is March of Dimes started with focusing on birth defects. Actually, polio was the initial, but again, if polio was solved by having a vaccine that they participated in the research. That problem was resolved with vaccination, which we now take for granted. And then they said, well, now what can we do? And they began to notice that babies were being born with birth defects, and there still was a lot of unknown about why these defects were occurring. So something that we do right now because of the research is folic acid, a vitamin B, that women are told to take during pregnancy because they found that if they were deficient in folic acid, their babies had more chance of having a neural tube defect, the spina bifida. They also found that if the mothers really were not healthy when they got pregnant, there was a lot more chance that they would have complications with pregnancy. So March of Dimes began to provide education for healthcare professionals, provide education for the families. And so once they had a problem, what impressed me was they say, what can we do to fix the problem? Um, One of the
Solutionist.
things, yeah, solutions, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And that's still what happens.
Right.
Is up to this day, we all know we are dealing with COVID. And
Right.
we didn't really know a lot about it. And you can imagine if you were pregnant, because we know infections can cause complications with pregnancy, there was a lot of anxiety among our pregnant women about what is COVID going to do to me, especially since they didn't have a vaccine. What can I do to protect myself?
Right.
You know, if I have to quarantine, how can I go for my prenatal care appointments?
Mm-hmm.
So, as an example of a solution, just like we all have done, March of Dimes went virtual,
Okay.
and they started having the telemedicine, and they
Okay.
started having educational programs on Facebook
Okay.
where they had panels where
Okay.
they could then speak to the women and they could sign in free of charge and have their concerns addressed to reduce
Wonderful.
some of that anxiety. And that is still going on,
That's great.
as we continue, because just as much as we are finding out more things, there are still a lot more questions as well.
Right.
Like now that we have a vaccine,
Right.
You know, is the vaccine safe to take when you're pregnant?
Right.
Is the vaccine safe to take when you're breastfeeding?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We still
Wonderful.
don't know 100%, but March of Dimes is saying we're going to get doctors, we're going to get researchers to look into that. So part of the trials
Right.
that actually are going on right now include pregnant women,
Okay.
okay, and continue to
Wonderful.
monitor them after pregnancy to see how the babies are doing.
Right.
So they've adapted to the times.
To the times of the pandemic, which is very progressive and wonderful. I should say, God blessed me to bring into this world a baby girl in November 23rd of 2020. So they say we had a COVID baby, if you
Yeah.
will, and my wife did well throughout the pregnancy. Nothing big. She wasn't sick. Didn't catch COVID, thank God, and
Right.
my child was born. In that process, we went to Centennial. In that process, I've seen some families who did, have premature. And being a pastor, I prayed for families that birth in this world premature children. What are some of the things you could share with the public that these families deal with in and out of the hospital? Or, from my understanding, and please correct and clarify my ignorance, but I've even seen families have to leave their children sometimes and go home and get rest and come back. So what have been your experience of watching these families go through these experiences?
Okay. Well, as I said, I had the blessing of having a long career to see a lot of evolution. But if I can give you a perspective of how far we've come, when I was working in the neonatal unit at Vanderbilt in 1968 and 69, we were a center for prematurity research. And as the doctor who was in charge began to have success with survival of these premature babies, the word began to get out into the community. And I worked the night shift. And I remember, again, phone ringing and a doctor from a community saying, I have a baby here who weighs 4 pounds, which is a big preemie for nowadays, since we now have babies that are 1 and 2 pounds. But at that point in 1969, that was, again, the average size of the preemies that would have a chance to live. Okay? And so basically, I heard you have a unit. Is there any way you can help this baby? So the doctor began to say, yes. When will the baby arrive? Now, it's hard to imagine, but in 1969, there was no EMS. There was no 911. All right? There was no community ambulance service. There was a funeral home, and they had a hearse. And sometimes they would be asked to transport adults, and so they would have some oxygen supply. But basically, those parents were told by that community physician, there's a doctor at Vanderbilt who will be willing to try to help your baby survive. You need to take your baby to the hospital. So in your personal vehicle. You can imagine the condition of the baby.
Makes me want to cry already having a
Right?
child.
That
Yeah.
baby was cold. There were
Yeah.
no incubators. The baby had no supplementary oxygen, etc. So when the baby got there, they were worse.
Yeah.
And unfortunately didn't make it. Okay. So March of Dimes, as one of their initiatives, said this was happening throughout the country.
Yes.
As there was care available for premature babies or babies with heart disease
Yeah.
or babies with other birth defects, they began to find that there was a need to find a way to get the news out. Who do you call? What help should they get before the baby is transferred?
Okay.
And maybe we should create an ambulance system
Okay.
that would be able to say, yes, we'll be glad to help the baby. Our team will arrive.
Gotcha.
Okay. So
Gotcha.
I happened to be a part of that process. There was a document March of Dimes put out, say, how can we regionalize high-risk care? And it first of all was addressing the babies.
Okay.
Okay. But then they quickly learned that these high-risk babies come from mothers who are also having complications.
Okay.
So it evolved into also having same system of communication, consultation, transfer of the mothers, even before the baby was born.
Okay.
Because the baby does, but the mother is the best transport incubator.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So again, just to let you know how far we've come. So now what it is that the outcome of the NICU experience is much better than it was back then. We know a lot. There is medications that March of Dimes has participated in the research.
Okay.
When babies have lung disease because their lungs weren't ready, the simple act of breathing they would have difficulty breathing, and so they found what is it that's making them not be able to breathe when they're early. It's
Okay.
because one of the substances in their lungs that was missing when they're born early
Okay. Okay.
is something they were able to identify in the lab. And over the years, they were able to, just like a vaccine, is come up with the medicine in a vial.
Wonderful.
And then it got so they said, well, this one works well, but I think we could even make it better. So
Yeah.
surfactant is the substance that is missing from
Okay.
the lungs of these premature babies. So now when the baby's having struggling breathing, instead of us just having to give them oxygen until they either live and get better or they die,
Yeah.
now we have a substance that we can give them early to make the work of breathing easier.
Right.
And then we can focus on their nutrition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which
When
is
a
very
baby
important.
is born small, it's very important for them to get
To-
the nutrition that the
correct.
placenta used to do.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So again, it has to be properly prepared so that their body can handle it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is where breast milk
Yes.
is the best milk for the baby.
Right.
There are all these
So they
great formulas.
receive breast milk while, correct me with the term incubate, how you say it?
Okay, the incubator is
Okay.
the
What-
machine, the box
That they,
that
yes.
they're in for extra heat
Correct.
and humidity to kind of set up like the uterus was with
Right,
the mother.
correct.
Okay, and there are openings within that incubator that allow people to go in with their hands and
Right,
take care of the
yeah.
baby. And now they have even what they call kangaroo beds,
Okay.
where you can press a pedal and the hood goes up.
Oh, wow.
Like a kangaroo?
Yeah, like the pouch.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So you don't have to go through portholes. You have a big open space, and then it goes
Alright.
down. So
Oh,
the technology
is-
that has been developed to
course.
try to make it, because the babies need to be kept warm.
Mhm.
They can't have dry skin. They get dehydrated if you were out in the sun. So
Right,
basically,
right.
they have to have humidity. We need
Okay.
to have a way to give them help with their breathing with machines that need to be able to be added to the environment.
Okay.
They need to get nutrition. Very often they can't eat by mouth at first, so they need it intravenously.
Okay.
You know the umbilical cord that babies have
Correct.
at birth?
Uh-huh.
Well, part of intensive care is they put special catheters through one of those blood vessels
Oh,
in the cord.
wow. Yes.
There's no nerves in that cord.
Wow.
So this is a painless way
Yeah.
that you can give IV therapy to
Yeah.
these babies and draw blood.
Wow.
So instead of getting a needle in
From-
your arm,
yeah, it
they
comes
just
straight
can draw
on
it out of
through.
the catheter.
Wonderful.
Now, this is called a central line, so obviously
Yeah.
the risk of infection. So that's where, again, the care requires very strict infection control.
Right.
You know, it's
And I'm guessing March of Dimes contributions from people all over the world help these advancements of technology and things to help these babies, right?
That's right.
Wow.
Their mission, if I could read.
Go
the
ahead, please.
The March of Dimes leads the fight
Mhm.
for the health of all moms and babies. That is the mission. All
Yes.
moms and babies. It used to
Yes.
be just premature babies at first, but now they realize this is a global problem, and all mothers, even those that are wealthy, even those that are healthy,
Mm-hmm. Right.
still for some reason have situations where they have complications with pregnancy and with their preemies.
And I'm glad you brought that up because March of Dimes and one with March for Babies is not just about premature babies and babies with
That's correct.
birth defects, but it's about mothers who have some struggles carrying and delivering. So what is it like on that end? You know,
Okay.
of course.
So one of the things that is important is to make sure the mothers plan for pregnancy.
Okay.
That's the big mission as well, is because
Okay.
it's your pregnancy test is earlier and earlier than it used to be, but still by the time you have a positive pregnancy, your baby's been developing quite a bit. The spine is completely formed in the first 30 days of pregnancy.
Wow.
30 days. So
Wow.
not all women know they're pregnant
I
yet.
feel bad for not knowing
Okay.
most of these
Okay.
things.
So, well, this is part of it, is that we feel there needs to be just good maternal female education.
Well, before you get deep into it, and I hate to cut you off,
No.
but now that we have evolved in technology, I know one of the things I remember my wife used to get on an app every other week, if not, it was really every week, but for me, every other week. I was so excited to see what my child would look like.
Yes.
Or, they would give comparisons like at a certain amount of months she would look like an orange or this, that, and the third. And they would say what's expected or what's growing in this week
That's
or
right.
this month. Is there an app that March of Dimes partners with, or does March of Dimes have an app that help with, like you said,
Yeah.
Planned Parenthood
Uh-huh.
and things like that? Do they have
Okay.
that as well?
They do. March of
Okay.
Dimes has an app that can be downloaded and
Okay.
gives you all kinds of information,
Wonderful.
questions, etc. But then also it has links to a lot of information. So again, for those that like to have it available all the time, the app is there. But
Wonderful.
also the
Good.
web. You know, obviously
Mhm.
you go to March of Dimes, the website, and has lots of different links.
Okay.
And there are also other materials,
Mhm.
you know, that healthcare providers are provided free
Mhm.
from the March of Dimes that you can give out to women, you
Okay.
know, when they come for their prenatal care.
Okay.
So in this day and age, you want to make sure there's no lack of access
Okay.
to information. So
Okay.
once we know the problem and understand it better, we need
Mhm.
to communicate it to the people. So the healthcare professionals and the general public need to know.
Okay.
One of the things that's also can be a challenge is that we find that the generations, you know, have different uh, thoughts about how women should behave during pregnancy,
Okay.
you know, or some of the things that our parents did when they were raising us.
Mhm.
They found out, well, maybe that's not as healthy
Yeah.
as it used to be. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like I remember my mother saying when I had my twins.
Okay. Twins. Wonderful.
Yeah, I had
Okay.
twins. I was blessed with twins my first
My
pregnancy.
mother's a twin.
She said, "Why are you breastfeeding?"
Mm.
That's what they made formula for.
Uh-huh.
Now, this was my maternal support.
Yeah.
So this is again not uncommon. There
Okay.
was an era where the formula companies marketed
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
as closest to mother's milk.
Okay.
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 So now they realize that again, mother's milk is important. And with the preemies, kind of getting back to what are the things we're learning and doing in the nursery,
Mhm.
even if the babies can't suck a bottle
Yeah.
or go directly to the mother's breast for feeding, we
Yeah.
can put a tube through their mouth
Wonderful.
into the stomach
Okay.
and then give small amounts of that breast milk that the mother pumps.
Got you.
So the
Gotcha.
baby's getting their own mother's milk,
Right.
and that also gives them antibodies.
Okay.
So that's one of the things with COVID,
Yeah.
you know, is that we know if your mother's had her vaccines and everything and is healthy, then the baby naturally gets those antibodies during pregnancy as well as through the breast milk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, with COVID,
Mhm.
they now are beginning to find that if the mother got the vaccine,
Mhm.
then the baby again is going to be protected.
Okay.
You know, after birth. So
Okay.
the science is beginning to reassure women that we believe that would be the case, but it's good that they're studying it so they can say we definitely
This is certainly
know.
what's
We
going
can
to
really
happen.
say this is not guesswork. This is science.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
which is a lot of the reason people have been anxious is because they don't understand the science.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so.
And I'm grateful you gave clarity to some things, even with the mother and children and receiving the milk. I want people to know, even in listening, and as I speak to those in the public who will hear this, why it's important to partner with March of Dimes, or not even just partner, but contribute to knowing that your finances is going to keeping children alive. Can you educate me and those who will view this? Children that are born premature, and I know you brought up maybe let's say 4 months, 5 months. When is it too late to save a child?
Okay.
In this, I know you said 1969. I mean,
Yeah.
if you stepped outside and but now as evolution is taking place, technology is being advanced, more finances are going toward the cause. When is it too? I guess when if they're born too early, when is it too
Okay.
late to save them?
Okay. So I think one of the things you're trying to think about is viability. That's the
Okay.
term that is used. How small is too small?
Mm,
How premature is too premature?
okay.
Okay.
Good.
A full-term pregnancy is 40 weeks.
Got you.
Okay. And then there's plus or minus, so any baby less than 37 weeks
Okay.
is considered preterm,
Okay.
premature.
Got you.
Okay. But a baby less than 28 weeks is much more premature
Got you.
than a baby at 36 weeks.
Like almost like stages. Yeah.
So at the present time,
Mhm.
babies as young as 22 weeks
Mhm.
can be born alive. That
Okay.
means they are breathing.
Okay.
They have a heartbeat
Got you.
outside of the mother.
Got you.
And depending on where they are born,
Mhm.
there can be intensive care available
Okay.
that baby has a chance of survival.
Okay.
Not 100%.
Yes.
Okay. But a key thing I want you to hear is the baby is born at the center where the special care is available.
Gotcha.
If that same baby is born an hour away in a rural hospital
Mm-hmm.
without an obstetrical department
Mm-hmm.
and is in the emergency room with
Yeah.
people that aren't experienced and they don't have the equipment,
Yeah.
you can see where the chances for that baby are
It's
much
slim
less.
to none.
We
Yeah.
can dispatch our angel ambulance,
Yeah.
but it takes a while for the ambulance to get
to
there.
get there, right?
And one of the things I did with materials that the March of Dimes developed was how can we teach people after they've graduated from nursing and medical school
How to
and,
deal with these
and again,
things.
respiratory care, and give them an update.
Okay.
Okay, what we learned in school in the 60s
It's totally
didn't even cover this.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
the March of Dimes has professional education programs,
That's wonderful.
and through the March of Dimes funds says even if you can't afford to pay for that instruction, we're going to have
We
grants,
provide it.
or we're going to have an educator that we will pay for,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that you won't have to pay that person.
Yes.
And one of
Yes.
the things I got to do was to travel around to these hospitals and to do the education on site.
Wonderful.
And
So-
I could go into the nursery and do a site visit,
Yeah.
and I could see what equipment do they have.
Yeah.
And maybe someone would say, well, we've never had a premature baby, which we're thrilled.
Yeah.
But what if you do? Are you
Are
prepared?
you prepared to handle it?
So you know how you have drills?
Mm-hmm.
You
yeah.
know, so basically the education would not just be what's the problem, how do you treat the problem, but the skills
Right.
that are needed.
Right.
So March of Dimes says they don't want a financial barrier,
Yeah.
okay, or a distance barrier. They said
Yeah.
March of Dimes' organization is going to do education to
Mhm.
make sure that what we learn through our research,
Mhm.
what we learn from the interaction with healthcare professionals, that every hospital with obstetrical services
Yeah.
has this access to information. And one of the things that's happened, I know, do you know that a lot of rural hospitals have closed
Wow.
because of the fact that the economy has changed and they weren't able to maintain the level of care that they needed. So those little rural hospitals had to shut down.
Yeah.
So could
Very
you
little hope
imagine if
for
your
it.
wife had
Yeah.
to travel 60 miles
What a premature child.
for prenatal care? And they had a job that didn't always allow them to, get off to go to that doctor's appointment at 2 in the afternoon. So another thing, March of Dimes, is they have an Office of Government Affairs in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And we advocate for the policies that are necessary to pay for obstetrical care,
Wonderful.
okay? TennCare,
Yeah.
Medicaid,
Yeah.
okay? If you have a certain level of income that doesn't allow you to pay for your insurance for prenatal care and for your baby's care, TennCare,
Mm-hmm.
Medicaid pays for that.
Wonderful.
And March of Dimes has been part of the process of getting that kind of system in place and adjusting the level of poverty that you're eligible.
So I'm guessing, and you said so much, but in that particular case, and I'm gonna make a statement to contributions from the world help fund
That's right.
families
It
who
ta-
don't have or cannot afford.
Right? Or rather than going into direct care, what
Mhm.
we do is say, what is the policy
Okay.
that needs to be in place in our government
Right.
that assures that women can get the care
that they
they
need for
need when
children.
they're pregnant?
Yes. Yes.
Okay? And
Yes.
it shouldn't be that if you are below a certain income that you get less care
Yeah.
or less quality care.
Not at all.
And what do the statistics show? If you have low income, if
Mhm.
you don't have good, safe housing,
Yeah.
if you don't have good, safe water,
Yeah.
March of Dimes was able to show, along
Yeah.
with others, that lead in water
Yes.
is not good. So they had to work with those communities where lead was in the water supply and then use that knowledge to spread it universally.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that those things are done. Also, we have to make sure that when we have unemployment,
Mm-hmm.
that we realize that that can complicate women's ability to work and to get into care, etc. I was beginning to lose my train of thought here, but the thing is that we need to make sure through policies, federal, state,
Mhm.
and local,
Mhm.
okay? When women are pregnant and they're on the front line as far as being employed.
Okay.
Okay. Do they have access to the protective equipment
Yeah.
to protect them while they're pregnant?
Right.
Okay. If they are having a premature baby and that baby needs her breast milk,
Mm-hmm.
okay, they are given pumps to
Yeah.
pump their milk that
Right.
then it can be stored.
Yeah.
And the March of Dimes with the breast milk banks make sure that the whole process works smoothly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But the thing is, what if the employer doesn't support this
Yeah.
and doesn't allow the mother time to go to a clean room
Yeah.
and pump
And do what she
and
has
allow
to do.
her to store her milk, and is understanding why she may be not functioning at the best because she's emotionally distressed because
Yes.
she has a
Of
sick
course.
baby,
Of course.
etc. And what's the maternity leave?
Yeah.
What's the paternity leave?
Yeah.
We're working now to make sure that
To work on
fathers
those
who want
things.
to become part of the care,
Yeah.
in a healthy baby at home, but also in a baby who's in the hospital.
Right.
Kind of getting back to one of your earlier questions about the stresses on families when they have a premature baby. So
Yeah.
if the baby is born 16 weeks early,
Yeah.
okay, 24 weeks,
Yeah.
that baby should have been born at 40 weeks.
Okay.
So you can anticipate that that many weeks, 14 weeks, will be in the hospital,
Yeah.
in the NICU, hopefully getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
The parents are allowed to visit,
They are,
encouraged, I shouldn't even say allowed, they need to visit
are,
their baby.
but they can't stay.
That's not the case always either. We have, depending
Okay.
on the facilities,
Okay.
the standard of care for most neonatal intensive care units is private rooms
Okay.
where the parents are able to stay in the room with the baby at all times. They even have little beds for them to sleep in or recliner chairs.
Wonderful.
They are part of the rounds that the doctors do on their baby
Okay.
so that they can, again, hear what they're saying about their baby. Very
Okay.
transparent,
Okay.
very honest,
Okay.
translated in terms they
And
can
I'm sure
understand.
with technology, they have the ability to look at it on their phones or iPads and all those things.
All that
right?
kind of thing. But again,
Okay.
the direct word of mouth from the doctor to explain your baby has this condition. How is
Okay.
your baby doing?
Okay.
Okay, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
You know, and try to be reassuring, but also be honest.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are a lot of conditions that the babies have. They get over one problem and then they may have another. And there's a lot of terminology
Yeah.
that can
of
be
course.
very confusing.
Of
So
course.
just simple things like March of Dimes has produced glossaries,
Okay.
and different things to help parents understand in
yeah.
lay terms.
Yeah.
And then the hospitals don't have to spend money printing that themselves. They can just get it from the March of Dimes.
Got you.
Okay.
Got you.
So it helps the hospitals keep their costs down.
Families.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's consistent information across the country,
yes.
Yes. So
And I like, in to the point, because I know we're drawing near, but
Yes.
I love that what I'm hearing is that March of Dime is very provisional and proactive, uh, teaching you before you get to the point, before you decide that you want children. Here are the things that could happen. Here's the things you need to do before it happens. And so it's safe to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the contributions of many and those who partner help fund all that you all are trying to do to keep children alive, and keep mothers informed. And I don't want to go too spiritual with the interview, but it's a form of ministry.
absolutely.
Even if you aren't a believer of God, but in a higher source of unity within society, you understand in order for society to grow and evolve, we need our children to take us the rest of the way. And the contributions of many helps any child, no matter where they are, continue to live. And I'm closing, but I just can't stop without telling you how intrigued I was when you start talking about there were no 911 calls, no ambulances, and the funeral
Yeah.
hearses were the transportation.
That was the emergency service. That's right.
Wow.
But think of it now. We're talking about it in terms of pregnant women and babies.
Yeah.
This was true for the community at large.
So funeral homes.
EMS
Oh my
evolved
gosh.
after the Vietnam War.
Wow.
Okay, because that's when they began to use paramedics
For yeah,
and all,
okay.
and they realized how it worked in a war situation. So they
So
took
brought
that
it to
and brought it to America and
society.
say, this is how you can get care
Mm,
emergently,
wow.
high quality, you know,
I'm a history major.
and
Didn't even
work
know it.
cooperatively with your hospitals,
Wow.
so that we had that outpatient emergency system.
I'm a history major. Shame to say,
Yeah.
and I didn't even know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, right. And so that's what made it exciting. Is I felt lucky that I was able to be a part of the evolution.
Yes.
You know, we bought
Yes,
a truck.
it's a true blessing.
We
Yes.
bought a truck
Okay.
from a dealership on Broadway,
Okay.
a bread truck.
Okay.
We brought it back to Vanderbilt, and we converted it into an ambulance.
Wow.
When you looked on the inside, you thought you were in an intensive care room.
Wow.
But essentially, it had the incubator, the respirator, the oxygen tank, the warmer, the incubator we talked about.
Yeah.
It had laboratory equipment. You know, it had everything. So when we got a call, we would dispatch.
Yes.
We would go to that hospital, whether it was 2 hours away, and this was before the interstate system was complete. So we had some interesting trips, you know, through
I
the
can
back roads
imagine.
of Tennessee.
Yes.
But basically, we arrived as kind of almost like a hero.
Yeah.
You know, we often got a
mobile
police escort
hospital,
into
yeah.
town.
Yeah.
And then we went to the hospital, and we worked there in the hospital for up to an hour or so until the baby was stable enough to be put into the ambulance and start the trip back to Nashville.
Oh wow.
Okay. Now, over time, we were able to teach them so that they were able to do a better job. When we got there, the baby was warm, not cold.
That's good.
The baby was pink, good oxygen. The baby had a blood sugar that was normal because they were able to start the IV.
Mm-hmm.
Before the education that March of Dimes was part of putting together and providing the staff to do it, they didn't have the knowledge or the skill to do that.
Wow.
So the chances of survival were much less.
Yeah.
And in some cases, they survived, but with special needs.
Yeah.
So the incidence of cerebral palsy, blindness because too much oxygen was given, neurologic damage because they didn't get enough blood sugar, you know.
Jeez.
So complications have also been significantly reduced.
Yes. Well, can you do me a favor and tell the people, in closing, I would love for them to know how they can gain more information, and if y'all host for parents, if y'all host class, where they need to go, so that, and we will have these things. They will be on the screen to view as you're speaking. Can you let them know what they need to do?
Certainly. So once again, I think that you know that the web is really a great way to get information. And you can go to the marchofdimes.org website and find multiple links so that you could find out about the organization. You can see how your money that you donate is used. They strategically meet on a regular basis to look at what are the priorities, where do we need to put our money this year, and then next year we'll evaluate how that went, and then we'll see if we need to redistribute it. It gets down to the community level. We work with the health departments. As far as care, we work very closely with the health departments.
Yes.
Okay, every community has a health department, and every community health department has prenatal services. And prenatal services is like parallel March of Dimes, okay?
Wonderful.
So that you can almost know that if you are getting prenatal care or pediatric care, March of Dimes is one of the organizations that healthcare professionals rely upon and actually participate on the boards that make decisions about how the organization will work.
That's
So
good.
I have the privilege of serving on the local board.
Okay.
And because of my experience, I can then offer them some guidance
Yes.
on
Yes. Yes.
some of the ways the money is used or some of the priorities that we need to put our energies into
Yes.
as we move forward.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, we want to definitely thank Ms. Major for this great interview, enlightening us on this topic, and then even telling us all that March of Dimes is doing to be proactive and either reactive to helping these families, these mothers, these children that are born into the world, and even the history that she shared of how it has evolved over time. And I want to even tell you that we are petitioning for you to come, even here at the St. Luke Church of Nashville, Tennessee. We're asking mothers who've had experiences, fathers, families, to come and share what your experiences were like and how March of Dimes have been a blessing to you and your family. We're also asking and petitioning people to contribute to these causes and to these funds so that we can continue the good work and the evolution behind the work of March of Dimes. The Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and specifically the Omicron Sigma Lambda chapter, thanks you for all that you're doing, the contributions. And if you look in the link in our captions on our Facebook page and even on YouTube, we'll ensure that you can be able to make the contributions on the website as well. And we give kudos to Ms. Major for taking out the time and giving us all the information. Is there any last words you want to give them before we go?
Well, since you have mentioned Facebook, I just want to say, too, that March of Dimes has a Facebook page.
Wonderful.
And they have a lot of recordings, YouTubes,
Yes.
where they have interviews with professionals that are indexed so that you could go on with a question and look that information at any time. So, again, I would encourage you to also look at Facebook, especially in these times when you have a lot of anxieties. They really have monthly interviews that allow us to be reassured by what are the do's and don'ts.
Yes.
And the best things that we can do to help each other have good, healthy moms and babies in our communities.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we thank you again for joining with us, and check out Omicron Sigma Lambda's pages on both Instagram and both Facebook, and even follow the St. Luke Primitive Baptist Church on YouTube at St. Luke Nashville to get this full interview so that you can be enlightened and informed. Peace. Thank you.